The Play Absolutely podcast with Dr. Sue Jennings and Dr. Andy Hickson.
Hello and welcome to the Play Absolutely podcast. Hi, Sue. How are you doing?
Hi, Andy. Yes, I'm good, thanks. And yourself?
Yeah, really good. I'm enjoying the heat. In fact, as we're recording, it's hot in here. Yeah, which for the viewers, for those who don't know, Wales, it's been cold and wet for several months now. So all looking good. And you're looking very fresh and colourful yourself, Sue. Is that a new top? I don't think I've seen that before. That looks
Well, it's a question
very
of trying to
nice.
find the coolest things one has now.
Yeah.
Yes, with a fan going in the background
Ooh.
and cotton
Okay.
clothes. It's going to hit 38 degrees today.
Oh, is it? But you know what that top reminds me of? What it looks like. So,
No.
What the Temia used to wear before they were introduced to Western clothing was something called bark cloth. So they take bark off certain trees, they'd hammer the whatever out of it and make a cloth, and it looks very similar to the texture to that and the color actually. And bark cloth, they make all kinds of clothing with it. Lovely stuff, and
Well,
quite rare.
And this one I'm wearing isn't beaten bark, but it is hand embroidered Indian, so it is pure silk, so which is lovely.
Yeah. Okay. So, have you got anything up? Have you got up to anything playful this week?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about jokes.
Jokes.
And our jokes play or something different, and
Okay.
but also when, for example, more serious situations, say when pop stars add 2 noughts to their sales figures,
Right.
which actually we all know about, but it sounds impressive. And is that playful? Is that a joke?
Oh, do you mean they add 2 noughts to their figures just to make it up, to fake it? Do you mean
To make the sales look good,
right?
or to make the audience look good?
Yes, well, I think that's a lot of marketing gets up to those little kinds of tricks, I would call them, not jokes, is they inflate their figures to attract more people on board, don't they? Or to say, look at how good I am, how many people support me, or how many people have bought this, making other people want to support them or to buy more. But yes, that kind of fakery I don't really like at all. I wouldn't call it playful. I would call it deceitful. Yeah. Which deceit does not marry to play in my mind. I know they sometimes say opposites attract, but yeah, let's keep play and deceit far away from each other.
But it's interesting, having started this podcast, everything one starts to think about it, one's questioning, is this connected to play or is it something different? Or have I been playful today even?
Well, I'm actually going to run through some questions. I was going to do it after our segment of play in the news, but actually we could run it now if you like. Are you ready for some? Well, I won't call it interrogation, but are you ready for some questions?
Why not?
Huh? Why not? Okay. So, I think I'll say for listeners who are new to Neuro Dramatic play. Okay, we'll start off easy. For listeners who are new to Neuro Dramatic play, how would you explain Neuro Dramatic play in plain language, and what makes it different from simply just doing doing drama or letting children play?
Well, I need to put it in a context, obviously, because as some viewers will know, I was one of the pioneering influences in relation to drama therapy. But drama therapy usually is discussed very much from children, say 6 or 7 years old onwards. And I
Okay.
started asking myself questions. Well, what happens before that?
Yeah.
I'd already introduced the idea of embodiment projection role as a developmental paradigm,
EPR.
starting with more or less newborns up to the age of 5. But there wasn't enough substance to include other sorts of play in EPR.
Right.
And that's what I started looking at, the absence of sensory play, for example. So having had my experience working in a fertility clinic and associated with a maternity clinic, I was using those observations of pregnant women and newborn babies to look at the earliest beginnings of dramatic play, sensory play, all these things. And out of that came some very clear examples that playfulness starts before birth. Playfulness starts between mother and unborn child. And we can be helpful and encourage mothers to be more playful with their unborn child, to tell stories, to sing little songs, to expand things that they already do in terms of establishing a playful relationship. Emphasizing in particular water play, sensory play, dramatic play, and underpinned very much by rhythmic play, of course, starting with a heartbeat. And it's really very significant before birth when the baby is aware not only of their own heartbeat, but of their mother's heartbeat. The heartbeat, I think, being the regulatory function of attachment and safety between mother and baby. So that's how it all started.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Hopefully that's a good introduction for our new viewers, or those not directly practicing or exploring neurodramatic play. But let's dig a little deeper. So, I mean, even in your answer and often when we're talking, you often describe the importance of body, rhythm, sound, movement, attachment, and imagination. Okay, the importance of those. Why do these become before words, and what do they tell us about how children develop? Do you want me to say that again? You all right?
No, I'm clear. I'm just
Okay.
pondering. The point being for me is the whole time we're looking at the development of attachment. And attachment in itself is a playful thing.
Right.
You know, tickling games, games of peekaboo, games of dancing on the lap, all these things are, in certainly the first 6 months, non-verbal. They might include a few sounds, but they include imitation. You know, baby makes a noise and the mother echoes it, and baby laughs or mum claps, and they're basically creating a shared performance between them. So performative play starts very, very early once a baby is born. And the groundwork for that has been established during the pregnancy.
Okay.
And then you notice the big shift at 6 months or so when peekaboo first begins. You can't start peekaboo too early because babies think you've really gone away, not that you're hiding behind your hands and so on. So peekaboo is establishing really the first step of imagination,
Okay.
of creativity, of knowing you're there even though they can't see you.
Mm.
So what you're doing by 6 months old is establishing let's pretend.
Let's pretend.
And let's pretend is very important. Let's pretend is playful.
Mm. Okay. Okay,
Does
that's
that
good.
make sense?
It sure does. Right. So I've got a couple more questions for you. Um, let's go to move to schools and care settings. So in schools and care settings, play is often used, if you like, to achieve adult outcomes. Yeah, things like better behavior, confidence building, learning, regulation, and so on. So how do we protect the child's freedom and imagination while still working responsibly as practitioners?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, get that question?
Well, I think, you see, we have directed play where teachers directly use play for learning.
Right.
You know, this is how Teddy eats his dinner and this is how baby eats their dinner sort of idea. Which is all very well, but we're also talking about play that is completely free, where the adult observes or follows the child and doesn't interfere. The only time an adult would interfere if it was a question of safety.
Okay.
If the child was doing something very dangerous or about to do something very dangerous. Otherwise, it's the child exploring something from their ideas, crawling inside the box and deciding it's a house or a hiding place or whatever.
Okay.
And I think where we need to be careful when we're recommending techniques and ideas is to explain to parents and to teachers how some of this must be free play.
Right.
Because children are discovering something for themselves.
Mm.
I mean, I find parents a lot more understanding now because I can explain how messy play actually helps to develop scientific thinking.
Right. Yes.
Science, mathematics, technology can all be reflected through messy play because the child is asking questions of itself. What if?
What if?
What if I mix the red finger paint with the green finger paint and so on?
Mm. Okay. Yeah.
And the most destructive thing to a child who is playing
Mm-hmm.
is to say, stop asking so many questions.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Stop asking questions.
Yeah.
Why would you even say that?
Or with older
Ask more
children,
questions. Ask
with
more.
older children, I've heard adults say, you've always got your nose in a book. You know, it's not healthy. You should be doing something different, not reading, which is an awful
Mm.
thing to say to. I mean,
Maybe
with
as
all the
well as.
technology now, thank goodness some children are reading.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you'd be surprised. You talk about technology, the amount of people and even friends that I know that are unable to focus too long on a book. They're relying on audio books. This wasn't going to be one of my questions, but what is there a difference, do you think, to reading a book with your eyes or listening to the words that somebody else is? It's the same words, but stories being told to you, or you're reading the words yourself.
There's a huge difference because when you're reading the book, you're
Right.
learning language, you're learning how words are spelt, how they're pronounced, how a sentence is constructed, how a phrase is, the difference between a phrase and a sentence, the difference between nouns and verbs, all these things that can be incredibly boring if not taught in a creative way.
Right.
But once you're reading, then all of that makes sense. Even punctuation makes sense once you start to read a book.
Of course.
Whereas when you listen to a book, there's no punctuations, just pauses now and again.
You also, I think, although you could be really engaged with somebody, and I love listening to stories, there are some times, for example, when it's difficult, well, impossible, dangerous to read. Like if you're driving, for example, listening to a story is good. If you're going to sleep and if you're somebody that likes listening to people talking or music or something while you're dropping off to sleep, you don't really want to be reading then, but listening. So there are times when I think listening is a good thing and maybe the only option, but I fully take on board what you're saying and agree with in terms some of the difference between reading and listening. And reading is, I think it's also going to open up your own fantasy world, because even when you're listening, they might be reading the same words to you, but their inflections, their tone of voice, how long they hold a pause, and all of that kind of stuff has an effect on what you're hearing, right? So, and you don't get a chance, as you do when you're reading, to put those in yourself.
Surely. And I think, though, we need to introduce a word of caution here. That I do think bedtime stories should be read by one of the parents.
Oh, as opposed to like a book, as opposed to a recording or something like that.
I mean, sometimes I've heard, particularly mothers, say to me, "Oh, well, the actor does it so much better than I could." And I think that's terribly sad. Terribly sad.
Well, it's very sad. I mean, not least of which, if you don't practice, you won't get any better either. Yeah, it's a bit of a cop-out. All right, let's move on to the next question. Got two more, okay? So the fourth question, what do you think are the risks when adults misunderstand play, either by kind of, like you've talked about, over-controlling it, or over-therapizing it, or just dismissing it?
Or saying my
play.
child gets lots of play on his computer.
Exactly, yeah. So what are the risks when adults misunderstand play, do you think?
Well, one of the reasons I'm introducing the idea of daisy play, which is a variation on neurodramatic play, is to encourage play to be accessible to adults again. Because every adult at some point in their childhood did play. Some will have played longer than others. But one thinks probably 90%, shall we say. Maybe. So it's reminding them of their own play activity when they were children, getting them to recollect, getting them to think about their favourite time playing, or their frustrating time when they were stopped playing. And I think once adults can make that connection and remember that they did play as children, and how it felt if they were stopped from playing or prevented from playing, they might then start to realize how important play had been in their own development.
Right.
So I think that that step of reconnecting with your own childhood, which at the end of the day means your own inner child now, doesn't it? Is very important. And we get so caught up in the business of being grown up and earning a living and going to work and buying a house and so on and so forth, that we start to just forget our own roots. Which is one reason, of course, we've called our summer school Roots, isn't it?
Roots and roots, yes. Okay, last question. If a teacher, a parent, a youth worker, a theatre practitioner, or such like, wanted to bring one neurodramatic play principle into their work tomorrow, what would you ask them to notice, change, or try first?
If they were complete beginners, then I would ask them to think about rhythmic play, to listen to their own heartbeat, to realize how that regular rhythm establishes security. If they had a little bit of knowledge, then I'd ask them to make that step from rhythmic play to messy play. Because those two things balance each other. One is the security, predictability, repetition. The other is the exploration and finding out and discovery.
Okay. Brilliant. Well, that's my questions for this week. So, were you surprised, or are they the kind of questions you get asked all the time?
Yeah, all the time.
Okay. What are the questions? I mean, obviously when you're running courses and you're being interviewed and you're just chatting with people, you must get a whole broad range of questions. Have you got any questions in your head that you think, why don't people ask this question? What's the least asked or never asked question that you think people should be asking you about neurodramatic play or play in general?
I think one of the issues that puzzles a lot of parents is this feeling that when you're playing, you're wasting time. We've got so geared up to the fact we've got to be productive. We've got to use time in the right way. We shouldn't mess about and so on. And yet, I mean, I've worked with children who've been so deprived of play, it's like a bursting out when they have a playroom they can play in. And to explain to parents and to teachers how important that is, how useful it is, to look at what they're learning. Two children playing together are learning skills, they're learning creativity, and they're learning relationships, how to relate to somebody else.
Of course.
And not to forget the social aspect of play, which of course isn't happening when you regard your computer play as the equivalent.
Yeah, and it's one of the barriers, isn't it, of people that, for example, homeschool their children is, unless they've got a huge family of lots of children, their children don't benefit from socializing as easily as children that go to school, because obviously you've got a lot of children there. So parents actively have to seek out socializing.
On that, by the way. Where I lived before, in a local community where quite a high proportion of children were being homeschooled. So a retired teacher friend of mine decided to see whether the parents might be interested in the children coming to an informal class that she could teach all the homeschool children together, whatever their age, which was immensely successful. And there was one parent who said to her, I will only send my child if you promise not to teach her maths. And she rang me up. She said, can you work this out? And neither of us could actually understand why this parent had a condition of no maths teaching. Because that's one of the things that would be most difficult to teach at home. I mean, modern math is extremely complicated. Even I don't understand it. So why would you try and ban that experience for your child?
There must be a good reason, but you didn't ask.
Answers in a sealed envelope by Thursday, all right?
Okay, and as we go to answers, let's move to our regular sequence of this week's Play in the News. As we know, we have recently had the International Day of Play, which we talked about in the podcast last week. In the UK, we've had a variety of events. I must say it's an international day of play, not just in the UK. But the UK did celebrate it, albeit not in the news, except for this news. The young V&A, the Victoria and Albert Museum, held a free International Day of Play event across the museum. And this included activities for early years groups and families. The program included Where We Play with early years settings, Sound Explorers for babies and adults, Pattern by Pattern for the under fives, and an after-school play champions session. The event was linked to Young V&A's Power of Play program in Tower of Hamlets. I like that. Power of Play. Yes, maybe that's something you can use. So this is museum play as cultural access, sound, pattern, shape, architecture, early learning, and family participation brought into public arts institution. It challenges, I think, the idea that museums are quiet, adult-controlled spaces. It says cultural buildings can be playful, bodily, and child-led. A museum becomes more alive when children are allowed to touch it with imagination. Yeah? So, I mean, it raises question like, how can cultural institutions protect child-led play without over-curating it? Now, abroad, we go to Zambia, and UNICEF Zambia and the government of Zambia marked International Day of Play at Chalimbana University, bringing together government representatives, development partners, educators, community leaders, media, children, and young people. The commemoration also launched the Harmonized Play-Based Pedagogy Guide and the Zambia Early Childhood Education Library and e-catalogue. Oh, that's a mouthful. Designed to strengthen play-based pedagogy and early learning. Now, this is play moving into national education strategy. The important thing is not only that children played on the day, it is that play-based pedagogy was linked to teacher support, caregiver, and early childhood education. This is powerful because it treats play as a serious route into literacy, as you were talking about, Sue. Numeracy, confidence, self-control, and social emotional development. It makes me want to share that when a country launches play-based learning resources, that play stops being a slogan and starts becoming system change. That's this week's Play in the News. What do you think of those?
Well, at least people are acknowledging the International Day of Play.
Well, yes.
And the idea of museums becoming more playful things rather than these dark, quiet, silent institutions that you walk around or even march around in, one behind the other from the old-fashioned school approach. I mean, I think it's great. It reminds me some years ago when I was in London and the Wellcome Institute, which is like a medical living museum right in central London in Euston Road, asked me if I would like to perform my one-woman show about the First Lady Doctor.
Oh, right.
So when schools were shown round, they stopped at this particular point and I did a short version of in costume. And then they could ask me questions in role.
Right.
I stayed in role the whole time. So it was like some very early beginnings of museums being playful and performative and interactive and so on. I loved that job. It was very, very useful.
Of course, you've done quite a bit of museum work. And when I say museum work, I mean using museums like an untraditional venue. And the one that comes to mind particularly, I don't know if I get the name right, but there was a hospital or a medical museum somewhere in central London that you performed certainly a few plays. I remember there was one about a surgeon that you actually did in hospital bit, or this hospital museum, the operators museum, or something like that. It was called. Is that right? Yeah. What was
That's
the
right.
show
The
and what
old
was the museum?
operating theatre
The
museum,
old opera. Yes. Okay.
which was
Yeah.
built in the belfry of St. Thomas Church.
Ah.
So the trouble was, when it was first introduced, it was an operating theatre for women. But when
Right.
they were doing operations in this operating theatre, it was over the heads of the congregation in the church underneath.
Oh,
And they were
really?
somewhat alarmed
Wow.
because blood started dripping through the ceiling onto the heads of the congregation. So,
We're just playing up here. Don't worry about us.
so they had to pack all the floorboards with sawdust to
Wow.
make sure nothing dripped through again.
Has anyone taken up floorboards to sort of see if there's any old blood from famous people or other
But
objects that have
if
dropped
anybody
between?
gets to go and see it, it is fascinating. You go up a spiral staircase to get to it,
Right.
and it's been preserved as it was, with all the rows of seating. You can see why it's called an operating theatre, because there is theatre type seating for
Right.
medical students and people to observe the operation. So the operation becomes like a performance for the students.
And you say that, I'm just diverging. Let's not forget about the operating theatre. There's another thing I want to say about that. But the word theatre is not restricted to the performance on a stage, is it? It's used in a wide range of playful things that we've talked about, right through to other extremes, like we could say the theatre of war, where people are on the battlefield killing each other. So theatre itself is used in many different realms, if you like. Why? It almost feels like an abuse of the word theatre, but there must be some deeper meaning. I know you're pride yourself on your Shakespeare and theatre history knowledge. Perhaps you could share why that is the case, what it is about theatre that it's used in such broad ways.
Well, I think part of it is connected with the fact that what is going on has an element of performance in it.
Okay. Yeah.
So people might perform in their, they'll say after a cricket match that was an excellent performance.
Yeah.
And yet
Yeah.
it's not a drama as such.
Right.
Unless somebody hits another person with a baseball bat or something.
These bombs performed really well in. Yeah. Okay.
So performance isn't necessarily linked to theatre.
But I suppose it's the space, isn't it? So it's like the operating theatre. It was a space that had an audience. The theatre of war, I suppose it's a space where they're performing nasty things against each other. But I mean, the only audience you're going to have are the victims of the war, really, aren't you? Or maybe the news channels that are showing it 24/7.
But also there's this thing which is quite confusing for people, I think, that, okay, the cricket match or the warlike confrontation are real events. But sometimes, for example, a world leader might say, well, we're going to war with so-and-so to teach them a lesson.
Right.
So it's not only the war, it's actually the motive behind it as well, which is quite curious when you think about it. It's quite complex.
There's many layers we know nothing about, I think, for sure. Certainly in the area of war.
But I hope we go on exploring on this podcast.
Indeed. We need to do that. I've got a little final question about the operating theatre. So you were talking about 2 levels. So when you performed there, and I presume it was was it your show about the surgeon, the female surgeon, the woman surgeon?
No, it wasn't about a surgeon. It was about, I had 2 shows I was doing. One
Okay.
was about Elizabeth Garrett Anderson.
Wasn't she a surgeon, Elizabeth Garrett, or a nurse or
No,
doctor?
I mean, in those days, doctors also did operations, but
Okay.
you did everything. You didn't specialize in quite the same way you do now.
So Elizabeth Garrett Anderson, I mean, because I'm presuming in those days it was at a time when women weren't allowed to practice as
That's right.
doctors, was
So
it? Right.
somebody had qualified in America, but she was the first person in the UK by
To
just
qualify,
keeping going
as what? What was her
to
official
actually
title?
qualify as a medical doctor.
Oh, right.
I mean, the
Brilliant.
final part of her exam, she had to go to Paris to do it as the only place that would
Okay.
accept her.
Really? What, the Sorbonne or?
And so she had to go by, horse and carriage to Dover, cross in a boat and horse and carriage to Paris to
Wow.
actually study for her final MD exam.
Okay. Well, she obviously passed because she became the first British female woman doctor, right?
But the other show I did there was about Rosalind Franklin. And,
Oh, right. The DNA woman.
that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
And of course, there were the two men that were competing with her to be the first and all
Crick
of
and
that.
Watson.
Mm,
Crick and Watson. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great story. They did, to their credit, eventually say how well Rosalind Franklin, not how well, but how much of her material had
Yes.
contributed to their effort. And I
In
think,
the end, they
weren't
did.
they all three of them? Wasn't she also given the Nobel Prize, I think? Because
Yes.
originally it was just going to be Crick and Watson, and then they brought her into the fold. I think that was,
No, they
it was a
can't
brilliant
award
story.
it posthumously.
Oh, right.
Once
They just said what a good
yes,
contribution
and
she'd made.
the
Right.
implication was if she'd still been alive, she would have shared it.
Right. Okay.
But that was a very interesting show to do, and that was like a more modern one. And the Elizabeth Garrett Anderson one was a Victorian one. I mean, they had a Victorian costume with a crinoline underneath, and
So my question on that was, when you performed those shows, did you do it downstairs where the congregation would have been, or did you do it upstairs where the theatre would have been? If it was downstairs, did you ever allude to the fact that there might be blood dripping through the ceiling, or ghost blood from the past dripping through the ceiling?
it was like a miniature Greek amphitheatre.
Okay.
With the performance space centrally in the middle, and then
But above or below? Because you had the church congregation below and the museum above.
no, the audience congregation was seated in tiered seating up.
Okay. So you didn't have any blood dripping on them from the operating theatre.
It would only have been in the congregation of the church underneath.
Right.
But a little startling when it first happened.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Right. Do you those are both one man, one woman shows, right?
Yes.
Am I right? Yeah. Do you still perform any of your one woman shows?
No.
Or do you have any plans to?
I'll sometimes include an extract if I'm illustrating a teaching point.
Okay. And have any of them be filmed? Can people see them online anywhere?
No, I don't think so. I think there are clips here and there, but I don't think we ever did a film of any of my solo shows. I did about 4 or 5 in the end.
And I suppose the last question on that, are the scripts available for other people to perform if they wanted to?
Well, the first one, which was Alison, the medieval midwife accused of witchcraft, that is available as a script.
And can people perform it? Do they need to get the rights from you, or is it
you
freely?
Get the rights from me, yes.
From you, okay.
And it's a minimal fee. It's not a huge investment. But the other ones are not available in published form. Though I suppose if people were really interested, they could have all my research notes on them.
Right.
If they wanted to continue those sort of ideas.
So you don't actually have actual scripts of those plays?
Well, I had things that I word process myself, like a typewriter,
Right.
and
Oh, I see.
had
So that
scribbled
nothing's
all
been
over them and
published.
wrote things and so on.
Didn't you write one of those plays with your sister? Was I right from memory?
The first one, yes, Alison.
Oh, that's the first. So
Yes.
did you pay her for that, or does she have any claim over
Well,
rights or
she's
anything?
sadly deceased now,
Okay. Okay.
and her
Okay.
rights to it will have died with her.
Right. Is that what happens to rights then, or do they get passed to one's estate normally?
It depends what arrangements you have with the publishers.
Oh, right. Okay. Right.
But in this case, my company published it, and that was the agreement we had.
Cool. Okay. Well, Sue, I think, we've done a nice podcast. Anything else you want to say about play or anything we've talked about this week?
No, except
Reminder to book on the summer school for people. You have not long for the early bird price.
That's
It's
right.
going up.
And that's going to be such a fun time for people to come and play together.
Fabulous.
A lot of play in nature. There's a river and a waterfall not far away, isn't there? So I'm hoping people will sign up for that soon, because it's going to be
multiple
such
waterfalls,
fun.
I will say.
Sorry?
Not just one. Multiple waterfalls, not just one.
And it's going to be a time for people to sit and talk about their work, get help with supervision, about how they can introduce this playful approach and so on.
Yeah.
It's going to be multi-layered in terms of what people take away from it.
For sure. Brilliant. Okay, well, let's go. I've got nothing else to offer here in this section, but let's go to what we offer our viewers every week. A little activity, a little playful thing that they can do if they're feeling in the blues, they want to sort of reduce or lessen some of the anxiety they're feeling, or of course something they might want to use with clients. So what have you got for our viewers this week that might help them if they're feeling a little bit down?
Well, it's a wonderful exercise if you're feeling tense or anxious or can't settle and so on. All it needs is for you to find a chair somewhere and just to sit, or a bench in the park, wherever. But to close your eyes and to imagine your favorite tree. It might be a bush, something small with flowers on it. It might be an oak tree. It might be a willow tree, whatever. But to imagine, see a picture of this tree and imagine its roots. And its roots going deep into the earth, being very solid, very attached, very steady. And while you're imagining this tree, you can imagine different sorts of weather. Maybe a thunderstorm, maybe wind, whatever it is. But you look at your tree and those roots stay strong, no matter what turbulence is going on outside.
Nice. I saw my old cherry tree from when I was 6 years old. I don't know if you remember it. To me, it was huge. To you, maybe it wasn't. Good. Okay. I've got something. Again, this can be for anybody, not just children, but adults as well. Called this the Worry Remote. Okay. And basically, it's aimed to reduce anxiety by turning a worry into something playful, external, and something you can control. So imagine that you're holding an invisible remote control, and your worry is like a noisy program playing too loudly in your head. Okay? So you can press imaginary buttons. You've got a volume down, slowly lower the sound of the worry. You've got a slow motion button. Make the worry move ridiculously slow. You've got a tiny screen button. Shrink the worry until it fits inside a matchbox, or you have a silly voice. Make the worry speak like a cartoon duck, a robot, or an old pirate. You can pause it. You can change the channel, turn the attention to something real life in the room, like a colour, sound, texture, breath, object. And you can finish by saying, the worry may still be there, but it doesn't get to hold the remote control.
Yeah. Great. That's a lovely one.
Yeah, okay. So, well, it's been lovely to chat again with you this week, Sue. I look forward to the next recording.
Okay.
Yeah, all I will end by saying is don't forget to play.
Don't forget to play.
Don't forget to play. All right.
Okay, bye, Andy. That's great.
Bye for now. And see you next time. Oh, viewers, if you've enjoyed today's episode, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel. It really helps the algorithm, helps us move forward. We're not getting paid for this. We're doing it for you. And we want to hear from you. So leave a comment down below of what you like, what you don't like, or challenge us with some questions. Okay. Ciao, ciao.